Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel, where we've got the TNT takes for you on The Amazing Race 34, Episode 3. I'm your host, Chris, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Michelle. Michelle, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. I just saw I was on mute and I thought, oh my God, why am I on mute? And I went to unmute and then I muted myself and I'm like, oh my God.
Technology. What it does is as soon as you do this little intro thingy as you come in, it automatically puts you on mute. And then if you try and unmute yourself, you're probably muting yourself. Hello, lovable Nikki. Hope everything's
Hi,
going well
Nikki.
on your side. And bonus, lovable Nikki is caught up prior to the live this week. We're all on the same episode and up to date, which is great. It's a good start to this podcast already. So Mega League. What did you think of the Mega League? Give me
A Mega Leg is called a Mega Leg because they tell the cast that they're doing the Mega Leg. Previously, it was called a Keep On Racing Leg when the cast didn't know until they got to the pit stop, keep on racing. It's basically the same thing, except the cast know now before they start.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? I've got strong opinions.
Look, Australia just did a triple Mega Leg. They got to the pit stop twice and they were told to keep on racing. And some of the teams were like, what the hell? I can't do this anymore. Especially some of them were like waiting to go to the toilet and actually said, I can't wait to go to the toilet and have something to eat. And Bo just said, keep on, just go on. And they're going, what? I don't mind them. But obviously they're putting it in there as a way to keep the non-elimination legs in, but not really.
So when you say keep the non-elimination legs in, but not really, do you think we'll see another one? I feel like this is the only Mega Leg we'll see.
I feel like we'll see another one because we need 12 eps.
All right.
And I think we need 12 eps and we've got 12,
Teams.
We've got an extra team. Look, there's always in the past, if there was a keep on racing leg, there were always the fans that would argue it's really a non-elimination leg, and others would say no, it's really a keep on racing leg, and it just went on and on and on, and it went going on for years. But really, it is sort of like a non-elimination leg, except no one gets penalized, anything, no one has to do a speed bump or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'll be honest, it's kind of like it takes half of the excitement out of a keep on racing leg out of it when you tell the cast this is what's happening. And they were all very aware of it throughout it. They're all saying, this is the Mega League. We want to make sure we don't get behind in the beginning. And I was like, well, this is kind of boring because they all know what to expect. The fun for me in this whole thing is the potential of one of them getting eliminated because they're getting to the mat and full saying, guess what, Glenda and Lumumba, you're last to the mat, but you're lucky. This is still part of the leg. It's a Mega Leg. You've got to keep going. And we miss that reveal and the excitement that brings to the show. So for me, that's something that I feel like made the episode less exciting for me than what I going into this hearing Mega Leg. I thought I was going to get that, the shock and reveal.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't get to see Phil on a mat saying keep on racing. It's just like keep on going. And then they were all speeding off to the next destination. So a lot of people don't like them. If my team that I really like is at the bottom, I like them. But otherwise, I can give or take.
Yeah, I listen, I like the keep on racing leagues. I just didn't like the Mega League and how it was structured by letting people know about it. Took the excitement, like I said, away for me. Iga also joining us in the live. Iga, welcome to the live. And Lovable Nikki brings up a great point, one that I picked up in the beginning of this episode. I'm really missing the airport drama. I'm really missing them going into the airport. Now, obviously, at the time when they were shooting this, it was way in advance to where we are globally now. I think last season or the beginning of the year when we were doing the podcast, we had also, again, a charter plane that would take people from one country to the other country. And myself and Michelle, we were very much still in countries that were doing lockdowns. COVID was still a big thing in both our countries. So we were, I don't know, a lot more tolerant to it. We understood. And I mean, if you had to choose having a show and not having a show, I understand why they had to do this, but I am also missing that now. The traditional, the Amazing Race that we're all love and have seen for so many seasons. Have Australian Survivor done the same thing, or do they actually go to airports? What is
Australian, I mean, not Survivor, you mean Amazing Race.
Amazing Race,
Australian Amazing Race just went off like it was normal world again. And
back in airports and everything?
COVID. Yeah, like half the cast got COVID. So, yeah, they don't have a charter plane. I mean, Phil even said in an interview last week before, they're not going to continue with the charter plane. It's just too expensive. Maybe they won't have one next season, but he said this isn't the way it's going to be forever because it's too costly.
Yeah. I mean, I really can't wait for us to kick off to what the Amazing Race used to be with the airports and everything. And I'm sure that is going to come, but definitely starting it off on a couple of things that stood out for me here that I didn't like. And I guess we might as well touch the last one, which Lovable Nikki is bringing up, which I've been not a fan of. And obviously we're getting it. And it's people leaving in groups. We've spoken about it in all three of our episode recaps or reviews that we've done, that we're not the biggest fan of that because it allows certain teams to pull away. But then one of the teams that leave in the first group that you would think would have the perfect opportunity to stay ahead of the pack, Glenda and Lumumba, they leave with the military brothers. They absolutely get it wrong. And they show you that in the Amazing Race, the difference between being at the beginning of the pack or being at the back is one vital mistake. And they make a vital mistake here in this leg by trying to hoof it, trying to, leg it to where they need to go next instead of actually using their vehicle.
They didn't read the clue. Read the clue. Like it's been going 34 seasons. Read it. For God's sake, people. It's not hard. It's in English.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. It's such an easy thing to do, but yet teams get it wrong season after season. And it does make me wonder, should there be a dedicated person within a team that you say, you're the person that's less scatterbrained, you're the person that's less go, go, go? Because in this combination of Lumumba and Glenda, Glenda seems to be the headstrong one, the one like, hey, we got to go this way, where Lumumba seems to be the one that's actually got more of that level head and will say, look, listen, let's read the thing slow and steady. She gets annoyed by him saying slow and steady, I think, at one point in this leg, but that is kind of what you need. So I feel like if I'm in that team, I'm like, Lumumba, you're reading all the clues from here on.
Yeah, that could go well. However, what if that doesn't go well and then you're blamed for you leaving the race because you didn't read it properly? And then you can say to your partner, you were the clue reader, you did this wrong. So that can go both ways.
Hey, I'd rather, if I know I'm the one that's going to take my time with these things, and I mean, especially having seen a few of these Amazing Race seasons, I'd rather have that. I would rather go out on my accord and be the one that messes it up than have my partner not read the clue right, and then we're both out of it. So I'll take the heat in that case. So I feel like they need to have that locked in within these teams. But like I said, military brother leaves first with these teams. They, once again, this whole leg are going to do extremely well because they're good at navigating. They're good at reading cards, maps, and getting from point A to point B, which is like, if you're taking out the airport and you're taking out taxis, which used to be random and Amazing Race, and you could just get a bad taxi. I feel like that's such a superpower for the military brothers to have now, to be able to go from point A to point B effectively without messing it up. And it's also one of the things that a few of these other teams are struggling with right now. Like there's a few teams that really just seem to not get this at the moment. And those teams are at the back of the pack for a reason, because they keep messing up the going from point A to B. Yeah,
exactly. It's because half of them can't read a map. And it's hard if you're speeding along a highway and you miss a turn off, at some places it's forever to get back on again. So, you can go one way and then the other, and then you're at the back of the pack all over again. And the group thing isn't great, considering they should really let them leave like they did in the old days. Times. Like if they start 12 hours later, which they did a lot of the time, but even if it's 18 hours or whatever, but you start in those timely increments, it's not as though the teams were that far apart that they couldn't do that.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you 100% on that. There's a few more people here that are sort of putting information in as we've spoken about the charter plane. Iga saying full set, the charter plane is here to stay according to Twitter until COVID protocols go away.
Yeah.
Evie is just acknowledging what you've said earlier about the Amazing Race Australia being a bit of a mess with Bo getting COVID, and then the teams had COVID return while missing a couple of legs. So doesn't seem to be too much fun. Christian Gall, welcome back here to the live stream.
Hey.
Christian was also in the earlier Survivor stream that I did as well. Absolute machine,
Gosh.
Christian. We appreciate the support and jumping into these. So, yeah, one of those teams that seem to struggle throughout the early stages here with the directions is Dom and Rich. And we finally get Rich to talk a little bit, and he's the one he got a couple of confessionals finally, like he actually does speak. And he talks about the fact that it's the anniversary this mega leg and that they're hoping to have a great leg. But Dom, I don't know what she's bringing to the table in this relationship, or this not the relationship. Let me not talk about their relationship, but what is she bringing to the play in the game, within the game? What is she bringing right now? Because she can't read the map.
Bringing calmness
and sending positive vibes.
Right at all, sending positivity. Look, I have to get this straight first, because I'm not religious, but I am spiritual in that I believe in crystals. I believe in manifestation. I believe in all that stuff. So I understand where she's coming from, but she's driving me crazy because she's giving this stuff out like, okay, she didn't say this, but like, be one with the car, and it shouldn't get you angry. And I'm sorry, we're in the real world. If you can't get the car to drive properly and you need to, you're allowed to get angry. Like, seriously.
The thing is, she's giving him this advice: be one with the car, be calm. And then he's like, can you please read the map, honey, so we can see where we're going? Oh, no, I don't know how to read a map. So it's like, what is she helping with in the car? Like, I mean, nothing. It's just like you said, it's nice words, but it's not really helping the team progress. And Lovable Nikki saying that this is probably her lowest ranked team at the minute. And I can understand that because they're kind of fun in some ways, but sometimes, like I think we spoke about this last week, sometimes you enjoy the hot mess teams, and then sometimes it's just a little bit too much from her. She's like very intense.
Well, a lot of people on the fan pages don't like her, and I'm in two minds. The whole post is about someone not liking her, and I'm like, do I let it through? Do I not? Like, I don't mind a comment under a post, but like the whole post about her, there was like 4 of them. Like, yeah, I don't think she's the best person on the race, but I wouldn't have a go at her personally. I love the color of her hair. I can't stop looking at her hair. I just want her on the screen for me to look at that. But yeah, just sending the vibes, especially in the Ducati thing. Later on, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they had a tough time, and it seemed like it was funny. A lot of the teams that were behind this league, that were quite far behind, made up a lot of time coming from behind. Like, I mean, Derek and Claire, again, really good at navigating and reading maps to get to the locations for Detours. But then, obviously, Claire's going to have to go to the roadblock again. It's going to be a bit of a struggle for her here this episode as well. But before we get into that, let's talk about the Detours. There were 2 options for this specific episode. There was Head of the Class and the Big Cheese. And I had a feeling watching this, I was like, Michelle's a teacher. She would have gone Head of the Class for sure. She would have taken it on. Was I right? Was that the one you would have gone for? And would you have killed it?
I would have gone for it only because that cheese looked so heavy. And I don't have any upper arm strength. However, I think my team partner would have taken the cheese and made me carry the cheese. So I don't think I would have had much of a choice there. What would you have done?
It's 88 pounds for the cheese, so that's basically about 40 kilograms. I've just done the conversion.
Okay.
For those of us that are not over in America and don't work with pounds,
that's 4 babies.
Yeah, it's not that heavy, but obviously you want to do what your team can do. The funny thing is, I actually studied sport and recreation when I went to uni with a conjoint in business. So business and sport and recreation together.
Okay.
And I ended up landing in business instead of sport. I was always thinking I was going to be a coach or coach a sports team or something down that line, but that didn't happen. But our first year in uni and college, for those that are over in the US, we actually studied anatomy with doctors, like legitimately the same
Oh, there you
classes, and we had to learn all this
go.
stuff. So I think I would have been okay,
Yeah.
but like it would have come back to me when I was there. But I've got to be
Yeah.
honest, like, you know,
Would have done
I
cheap.
probably, I don't know if I would have gotten it in the first attempt. There were quite a few teams that were very impressive and they got it in their first attempt,
Yes.
because you don't know, like the human body's got a lot of bones in it and there's a
Mm,
lot of different muscles in it. So it's easy for you to go in there and not know which specific ones they're going to
mm,
ask you to put down on the I guess the little picture that you've got to point out where all these different things are sitting. So you could easily get it wrong on the first go. But there was a few teams there that were extremely impressive. The Twins, for instance, got it first
yeah.
time, which was impressive. Who was the other teams there? I feel like the cheerleaders, because they had Maddie, who apparently, and obviously Maddie, being a cheerleader, being into sports, she probably did the same class I did. She probably
Mm,
did like something in
yeah, she
fitness
was
and ended up
good.
having to do, she probably ended up having to do anatomy as a part of that course. So they got
Yeah.
it both in the first attempt, which was very impressive because it
Well,
looked
only
difficult.
3 did the cheese. Everyone else did that. I mean, what poor Linton and is it Sharik? Sharik?
Yeah,
Um,
Linton and Sharik, yeah.
yeah, like, really? Oh, I just wanted to say something about them on the way to that challenge.
Did you notice the eyes this week? Please tell me you noticed the eyes this week.
Oh, you didn't know? I didn't think about it. Oh my
I told you,
god.
beautiful eyes, and you still haven't noticed it. It's
I
crazy.
didn't notice. Okay, I'll have to have a look. So they're in the car on the way to the first thing, and Linton says they were just chatting. Linton says, "We got this," and he didn't even say it loud. He didn't say it with extra energy or anything. And Sharik said, "Oh, whoa, that's too much energy." And I'm thinking, Jesus, if she thinks her dad has too much energy, she would be scared and run away screaming from me because because he said nothing. He just said, "We got this." And I'm saying it louder than what he did then. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, "Oh, you poor little thing."
It's one of the things I will criticize this season of for me. It's like I don't feel like there is enough big personalities. Like it feels really bland for me at this stage across, like they're all probably nice people to hang around with, but it feels a
Yeah.
bit bland. Like this is an entertainment show, you know?
Mm.
Is it fun? Is it fun watching these people race? So I mean, if they took Rich and Dom out, right, that's a massive character, you know,
Yes.
team duo there that people are
Yeah.
either gonna shout against or like, but at least they bring, and she brings more so than Rich because he's a bit bland as well. But Dom brings something to the table this season, you
Yeah.
know, and the military brothers, they're intense, they bring something to the table. Derek and Claire, they bring something to the table. Quentin and Maddie, I feel like kind of almost like through Quentin more so. Maddie seems a bit more
Yes.
bland,
Yeah.
brings something to the table. But outside of that, I don't know. Like it's not, there isn't that many big personalities for me on this season. So
Yeah.
you're right,
And,
the energy is a bit low.
and I'm feeling like Linton's been squashed by his daughter. I feel like he could have a big personality. But yeah, she's squashing that. I don't understand. I don't understand people like her. I'm always up.
Yeah. You know, and you need that little bit of a boost and that energy and motivation to keep going while you're out there as well. Like, you know, to
Exactly.
keep pushing yourself through all of these crazy tasks that they have to do. What did you
Exactly.
think of the classroom or the building that they had with all
Oh,
these old wooden seats and things in
amazing.
there? And they said that this has been thousands and thousands of students that studied medicine
Hundreds
had to
and
go through
hundreds of
there.
years. Yes,
Yeah.
centuries. Can you
So
imagine?
cool.
Well, can you imagine being in there in, say, the 16th century and a body being on that middle thing? Could you imagine? Just there would have been blood everywhere for one thing, but
Yeah.
just opening up a body
Didn't look
for
like there was
those
good airflow
people.
in that thing. There was
Well,
no windows from memory.
no. But just to have that back then would have been just amazing.
Yeah.
And I love the area. It was so well made and it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, I loved it, and I love when they use things with history like that. That's a lot of the things that Australian Amazing Race has lacked recently is the history aspect and using buildings like that instead of using outdoor areas or using blander type places. I love the history, and even the pit stop in Austria. Yes.
Yes.
Um,
What were
it's
they with now, or the
beautiful.
previous pit stop? Yeah,
The
yeah.
previous pit stop, like the castle, it's just
Yeah.
beautiful. Use the history of the place. Yeah.
I agree. And I think when you're in Europe, that is such a big thing about Europe. It has
Mm,
got so much more history than other parts of the world. Not that other parts of the world don't have it, but there's been civilization there for so long as we know it
mm,
in the Western world. I guess there's Japan and China and places like that that's got very
mm.
old civilizations as well, but they really do preserve that really well over
Yes.
there. So
Yeah.
you kind of want to take advantage of it. In Italy, obviously being one of the biggest places for this type of history, had one of the most dominant empires ever
Mm,
back in the day, the Roman Empire. So you'd want to see a little bit of this history, there. And I think the Roman Empire is also one of the first ones that sort of studied medicine. And that's why they kind of, or like we know it right now with mapping out the human body and giving it all these different parts and things like that. One of the funnier, lighthearted scenes for me was Lumumba trying to understand the guy and hearing completely different things to what the guy is saying in there and just
I
getting it wrong
know.
time after time and then
Era,
showing him get it wrong.
era. He's saying era, and I'm like, no, he's not. What who are you listening to? And yeah, and was it him as well that said, I know he's speaking English, but I can't understand. And I'm okay. That both of us have come from a very multicultural society, and we hear a lot of different people speak in
Yeah.
lots of different accents all the time. Now, obviously, he's from a part of America where he doesn't hear a lot of different accents. I had no problem deciphering what he was saying or listening or anything up with all the words. But yeah, that's a lot of the problem with Americans, is that some of them are so closeted in where they grow up, they don't get to hear or have, any sort of, oh God, any sort of, I'm trying to figure
Like
out.
different dialects or
Well,
like
they don't hear as much as we do in our everyday
yeah,
life that we
that's
do.
fair. That's fair. But I also want to it's an interesting point you bring up because I obviously picked it up as well. I remember being this young 18-year-old South African going from like a little rural town in South Africa where I grew up
Mm,
to going over to London and working in England for 2 years. And my first language is Afrikaans and my second language is English, but I've spoken it for so many years that it's kind of both like a first language now. But back then it wasn't. I wasn't as
mm.
fluent in English when I went to England, for instance. And I remember going to certain parts like Northern England and Sheffield and hearing the Yorkshire accent and thinking, what am
Yes.
I listening to? Or going to like Scotland and hearing two Scottish people talk to each other and just be like, what's
Oh,
going
well,
on? Like, I know they're
if it's
speaking English,
broad
but I don't know what they're
Scottish.
saying.
Yeah, if it's broad Scottish, it's really, you're really listening and really concentrating.
Yeah,
But yeah,
now I'm good. Now I'm similar to you, Michelle. Like I can pick up different dialects very easily because I've been fortunate enough to travel a lot myself and go to a lot of different countries. And I've got like in Auckland, so multicultural. I've got friends from all different. Like I've got, funny enough, friends from Glasgow. Friends from Dublin. I've got friends
mm,
that are from the Middle East. I've got different different ethnical backgrounds and cultures that all sort of mix together, which is beautiful
yeah.
because you learn so much more from each other. But like you said, maybe in Lumumba's case, it is a case of him. Not that I don't think all Americans don't, and this is just my
No, I
take.
didn't say all Americans. I'm just saying
Yeah,
some.
yeah. I think they just don't have the opportunity.
Some.
Maybe
Yeah,
like Lumumba has maybe not had that opportunity,
yeah.
But it was
And
I saw it as a
the town he
lighthearted
lives
moment.
in
Yeah,
isn't, doesn't have a great population that's all different cultures. It could just be a few different cultures, and even if they are different cultures, they've lived there for a couple of generations, so they do all sound very, very similar.
yeah.
I've had Aussies who watch South African
They can't pick it
Survivor,
up.
and they can't understand what you're saying, and I'm like, what do
Yeah,
you mean you can't understand what he's saying? So
exactly. So
yeah, same.
you get
Same.
it, and
Yeah.
different parts of the countries. Like, for instance, if you're more rural, you're not out in the big city life, and you don't have the money
Yeah.
or the means to travel, then
Mm.
that could be a thing. Or some people just don't want to travel. I don't understand it. Like I always have like friends or family that's like, I don't ever want to leave South Africa. Like, I will never travel anywhere. And I'm like, why? Like, why would you not want to see the world? Like, it's so much bigger than South
Yeah.
Africa. But some people they just love where they're at. But it was a funny moment. One thing I cannot forgive, I can forgive Americans for maybe not picking up the lingo in Lumumba's case. But one thing I cannot forgive is, like, I still find it so entertaining and funny that Americans can't drive stick. Like, I just don't get it because I grew up driving manual.
But I haven't. I did have one lesson in a manual, so I knew what was going on. And then I did drive a manual at one point and stalled it 5 times at the lights before we went anywhere. That was crazy. So yeah, I've always picked a team partner who can drive a manual. But when they couldn't reverse it today, I actually said to my husband, isn't there an R like on like our automatic cars to say where you're going backwards? And he said, well, sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't, but you have to, in a lot of cars, you have to press down, go to the left and come back down or go back up. And so it could be difficult for him if there's no R and he hasn't worked out how to do reverse on that particular car. Is that true?
Yeah, well, as far as I'm aware, unless it's a very old car, all sort of cars these days on their stick shift has got an R1, 2, 3. The biggest part, I think, for people that don't drive manual vehicles or stick shift vehicles on a daily basis is the clutch and petrol relationship, acceleration that you need to figure out with putting it into gear. And that's when you hear people like grinding the gears because they're not actually stepping on the clutch. They're not stepping deep, or they just like touch the clutch instead of pushing it all the way back so that they can put it into first or second, But for me, that's funny. Lovable Nikki is saying, why are we still going on the Amazing Race without knowing how to drive stick?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
It's one of the mysteries of the world.
Yeah.
Like seriously.
Yeah. I reckon if we can figure this out, whoever's got the answer to this should go to the next Who Wants to Be a Millionaire competition, and they'll probably win the $1 million.
No, okay. Then why are we still going on Survivor if we can't swim? Like, seriously, there are people who do some swimming lessons before they go on. What the hell?
Do you think that the casting department, when they ask these questions for people to go on there, they like ask them, have you ever driven stick? And then they're like, no. They're like, done deal. This person is on because we need a segment of people struggling to.
Well, I always answer that question with no, but my teammate can, and I leave it at that.
Maybe next time, this is how you get on, Michelle. You both say no, you don't know how to drive. And then you're like locked. They'll get you on there because they're like, now we can get them on there. And Michelle, you've got blonde hair, so they'll be like, it's going to be the ditzy blonde narrative that we're going to be telling.
Yeah, that's it. Great.
Evie is saying, well, Will and James won and they weren't great with driving stick. Yeah. But they also did it in a season where they weren't required to drive all the time, right? They could still do taxis and they could still get into buses. And this season now so heavy, you have to be able to drive yourself from point A to point B. All right, we've spoken a lot about head of the class.
I've got another something about Rich and Dom.
Yeah, go.
On the way, why is she wearing a mask half the time and not wearing a mask half the time? Because the cameraman and the sound guy are still in that car the whole time. Sometimes she has a mask on, sometimes off. Why?
I didn't even pick it up.
You've got the germs already. No, it doesn't matter if you put it back on now, love. Like, it just
I honestly did not even pick that up. I did not pick up that they were. Maybe I'm so tuned out of the whole mask wearing situation right now. I'm like, it's normal life. I'm getting on with my life. That I didn't even notice that. So I'll have to look out for that next time. But you're right.
But anyway,
I don't think between me and you, I don't think the mask helps that much in any case when you're in that closed little vehicle driving with a cameraman. Like, I just don't know.
I've not had COVID yet, and I have kids sneezing on me every day of the week.
Yeah. You're definitely one of the lucky ones, though, when it comes to that. I've got a friend who's he's a headmaster for a school on the South Island, and he's had it twice. So you're lucky. Bonus. And that New Zealand, I mean, you wouldn't expect it. All right, so head of the class. Is there anything else that sort of stood out for you around that? I think it was pretty straightforward. No. The other one was the big cheese. And like you said, there was 3 teams that went for this. We had doing the big cheese, the military brothers, who were first to get there, kept being ahead of the pack throughout this whole thing. They really beasted through this where they had to go halfway, meet someone, cut the cheese in half, and then continue to deliver it. At the time when they were going back is when Derek and Claire got there to do their one, and they were the third team there. With the second team, I believe, that was there, and you correct me if I was wrong, it's Louis and Michelle. They also got there. And they stayed in that second place all the way through. Yeah. To me, the Big Cheese looked like the right one to do here. It looked like teams were getting through it quicker than the other one, the head of the class. But a lot of the teams that got there late, like the cheerleaders, got it in their first attempt. The twins got it in their first attempt. And I feel like there was another team that I'm missing out on that got it on their first attempt. A lot of that teams in the back that were in the last group, they made up time by doing that. And then there were teams that really just lost the whole bucket load of time being there.
Look, I think in hindsight, the cheese would be easier because if you don't have the muscle mass, all you have to do is get it to the trolley. And then it's pretty straightforward. You've just got to be able to find the places. So, in hindsight, people should have picked cheese. Would have been a lot quicker for them.
I think I would have still, depending on who was my partner, I would have still leaned to go do the Big Cheese just because I like the physical side of things and knowing, nothing is ever like it seems with the Amazing Race. They're like, oh, you're just going to go in there and name a couple of parts or anatomy. And I'd be like, well, what if there's like a hidden thing there, like that I have to do when I get there? And then it's harder than what I think, So I'd be like, I'd rather do the physical thing, get it done because I know it's point A to point B. I just got to leg it. I just got to move things around, move some weight around. Plus it's a free workout,
Yeah. Oh God.
And I like working out.
Oh my gosh. Did you watch the Aussie race this week?
I did. I am completely not.
You're not.
On.
They had to move a whole pallet. Do you use the term pallet over there?
Yes.
Of yeast, bags of yeast. And the bags were huge bags and they were carrying them on their heads, but they had to deliver 20, so 10 each up and down this dock sort of area. And that was huge muscle power and they were dead by the end of it, but they didn't have a choice. That was what they had to do. It wasn't a detour. So that whole muscle thing. Yeah, look, it's easy. It's straightforward. You don't have to think. Yeah.
So first letdown for this episode was the fact that we had this mega leg that everybody knew about and kept telling us about throughout this whole thing. I was like, it's no excitement, nothing to look forward to at the end of the episode because everybody knows, so that really had me on a downer. Then I get halfway, they bring me halfway up because they're like, hey, we're going to go to the Ducati factory. And I'm like, this is awesome. Ducatis, we're going to see Ducatis. Someone's going to get on a Ducati and they're going to be racing around a track just to troll us. And they have to go there and put this thing together.
Yeah. And anything like that, anything where they have to put a tuk-tuk, when they have to put a tuk-tuk together or a bike or anything, a car, I'm like, this is where teams really spread out and split up and the whole line changes, people leave earlier that came last. And it's such a good task to really, test the teams and the movement of the teams.
Now, how would you have done? Would you have known how to use that wrench that Claire struggled with?
Oh, I've seen people use it. I've never used one.
Yeah.
But Claire, oh my God, she's just a hot mess.
It's so funny seeing this side of Claire because I do think she's super capable, but I feel like because I remember her from Big Brother in the early days, and I think she was pretty decent at challenges. She's not but she's coming across as the anchor for that team right now. And I feel like we're going to be surprised later on. People might underestimate her because she is definitely better than what she's been doing in these.
Well, I don't know. I put her as a winning team, and I'm really rethinking this today after the yodeling and the bike, and I'm thinking maybe I put them too high.
Who do you think? We'll continue on with Derek and Claire shortly, but who do you think is the team to look out for right now? I mean, the obvious one is the Military Brothers, right? Do you think they can keep the momentum they've got currently? Because it doesn't look like anyone is close to them.
I think they can. Louis and Michelle, I really think they've got a chance. And the twins as well.
Yeah, I think I'm sticking with my dark horse team, Quinton and Maddie. I think Quinton and Maddie could still come. But listen, you're laughing at me right now. But Quinton and Maddie came from the back in the previous one, to finish it. And then this episode, again, they were making up time like crazy, to the point where by the end of this episode, they're in 8th place. They've moved from the back a couple of spots up. They just need to continue to climb 3 spots at a time.
For you, they do, yes.
Quentin and Maddie, I got your back. Right? You're the team. You're my team this season. You got to make it from the back of the pack, and you got to win this thing, okay? But no, I think Marcus and Michael, the potential weakness that they have is Marcus just being too headstrong and maybe just doing too much at the wrong time. But he did there was very limited information for them as to what they were going to do. Just said who needed a break or something like that.
Yes, but how? I want to know how break was spelt. Is it EA or was it AK?
I'm sure they.
AK, I'd be like, "Yep, you can do this challenge."
I'm sure they would have made it hard on them. They would have misspelled it so that people couldn't pick it up. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, but I do think that, obviously Marcus is someone that has bikes, knows about bikes a little bit, so he thought he could do okay putting this thing together. Michael did a pretty good job, I will say. He didn't beast it, but he didn't lose time. There's people like Claire, for instance, that absolutely butchered their lead. They got there in 3rd place and ended up, leaving in 6th place by the time that they got out of there. So they dropped 3 spots.
Good at it.
Very good at it. She was the shock. She was the shock because they came, I think they were like 8th or 7th when they got there. And they left in 2nd place. They left just behind the brothers. That's how good she was.
So good.
So, and I'm not sure which one of them were the one that ended up beasting it through the anatomy part of it, but I think it might have been the other one.
Yes,
of
I'm
the
not
two
sure,
twins.
Molly.
It might have been Molly who absolutely beasted it through the anatomy part because she has done some work in the medical field or something like that as well. So this was their episode. Like outside of Marcus and Michael, this was really, and it's interesting because they're still learning about each other and where their strengths and weaknesses are. They don't even fully know who's good at what.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And also every time they talk about their story and that they have to, be on the race longer so they get to know each other better, I'm like, yes, you do. You have to. I think a lot of people are really behind them staying in the race just for them to get to know each other more.
Yeah. Evie is thinking 2 steps ahead of us. She's playing chess, not checkers. And she's saying, I think that Derek and Claire made a strategic decision to let Claire do the first task and he does the second, as he is the one with the head, I think, or the one that's a little bit more, that they can rely on. We don't know that yet because Derek's only done 1 roadblock so far. She's done 2, but it means that each one of them probably, and maybe there's a rule where it goes, you've had someone else do the first part of this leg on the roadblock, you have to do the second roadblock in this leg or something like that. I could very easily see that being a thing.
I was like, oh my God, why are they letting Claire do this one? I was thinking, as soon as she walked out, I'm thinking, no, Claire, what are you doing?
I thought she was going to be there forever because, to be honest with you, that little lever at the back that you need to flip when you're using a ratchet to either tighten or loosen, it's easily missed. And if you've never used it before, it's very easily missed. So I don't that was the only thing she struggled with. When she got that, she was back.
Tire as well. Didn't you have to push something to make the tire spin?
But she didn't really struggle so much, I felt like, on that. She struggled to actually just get the ratchet to work. And then she figured the rest of the things out pretty quickly. But to spin the tire, which I'm not someone who drives bikes a lot. I've been on bikes, but I probably would have gotten it, but it's that manual thing about it won't move if it's in a gear. So you got to put it into neutral so that you can spin the wheel. So you got to get it, get the clutch in, put it in neutral, then you can spin the wheel. But one thing that I would have been confident about is that, Michelle, a couple of years ago, I've got a Honda Integra. I used to have a Honda Integra. I don't have it anymore. 1991 model, very old school car that I drove for the first 6 years or so that I came to New Zealand. And it broke on me. And I was like, you know what? I went to a mechanic. What happened? The cam belt went on it. And he's like, it's going to cost you $3,000. This is like back in 2009, 2010. It's a lot of money to fix this thing. So I was like, no ways. And I went onto YouTube and I learned how to fix it myself. It only took me 8 weeks. I was without a vehicle for 8 weeks. I'm not a mechanic. But because of that experience of having worked on a car before, and since
Wow.
then, I've tinkered in it a little bit. I feel like I would have at least known
Look,
the basics.
we've
I would have
learned
known more than most.
we've learned you can persevere. If you're fixing something for 8 weeks,
Yeah, I
you
made a lot
really
of
want
mistakes.
to get it
You know
fixed.
what's the problem with this? Okay, I know this is going to be very geeky, and only people who actually have a car or care about cars are going to get this. But when your cam belt goes, all the pistons in the top end of your engine goes as well. So you got to actually replace that whole top end. So I had to remove it, get one from the junkyard, do a Frankenstein build, and put it on top of the engine, and then put the cam belt back in. And I had to, while doing that, I replaced the water pump at the same time because it's very difficult to get to it. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm removing all of this, I might as well replace it right now because the mechanic is going to do it at some point. So I learned a lot. I'm one of those people. I like to get stuck in and learn new skills.
So how much longer did you have it for after you fixed it?
I had it for another 3 years after that.
Okay, all
So I
right.
got
So
my
it was
value out
worth
of it.
it. It was
Yeah, I
worth
got the
the 8
value out of it.
weeks.
And the thing for me is I just like learning stuff. So I feel like that would have helped me,
Yeah.
being my dad was in construction building, like anything where it comes to putting stuff together, I'm pretty good at that stuff. So like, deconstructing something and putting it back together is good. So I think if I looked at the example that the person was giving me, I would have been able to pick it up from there pretty quickly. So I feel like I would have been okay. The problem is, would I have known to pick myself to go do that? Because in fact, I probably would have, because I would have been like, man, I want to get on the bike. I just want to go around the track.
Tell me the thing on the, was it a wrench? I'm not sure what the name of.
It was like a ratchet that
Well,
like
has it got a little lever on the back so it can go this
yes.
way or that way? So, okay, I would have noticed a lever. I would have said, oh, what is this for? But I would never have been able to work out how to make the wheel spin. So I would have been there, and I would have been there till nighttime until someone said, right, we're closing now. You're going to have to take a penalty. Because I wouldn't have been able to work out how to make a wheel spin without asking someone. Maybe the last team before me, the second last team to leave, I may have been sitting there and said, look, can you tell me how to make this bloody wheel spin? Because
Yeah,
I would.
well, one person who knew what they were doing was David. David came in there pretty late-ish as well. Similar to Emily, just got through it pretty quickly because apparently he's into bikes and things. He's an enthusiast, right? He had experience with it. So he's the one who got that pretty quickly. So Michael and Marcus, by the end of this league, were in first place. Emily and Molly in second place. Aubrey and David leaves there in third. Lewis and Michelle left in fourth. Now, I know you say you're high on Lewis and Michelle, but I feel like they go missing, similar to Aubrey and David for me at times within the episodes where I just don't know what they're doing. And I don't know if, I don't know, you don't like looking at the edit. I sometimes can't help myself. It's like, is this the winner's
Well, they
edit?
were very excited when they got things. Do you remember? They were excited. So they did show that because not a lot of people are very excited.
Oh, here we go. David is a helicopter mechanic. That's right.
Oh, there you go.
I remember he had some sort of experience. Like if you could put helicopters together or work on helicopters, I'm sure doing a bike is child's play in comparison to that.
Yeah. I mean, we get a lot. Always get a lot on our colored hair lady because she's just she's very filmable.
You can't keep that personality under wraps. It's just never going to work.
Exactly. So, some teams are not as bright and cheery as her or
What did you think of her doing the namaste and sending the positive vibes to Rich and then suddenly he got it? Do you think it worked?
I think he was already going to finish it off then.
Are you saying that she saw him nearly finishing and then she's like, oh, this is going to make for a great camera moment?
Possibly. Look, you know what? I'm all for that. I'm all for that. It just seems sometimes I know people have said they want to slap her, which is
we don't condone violence.
No, and I don't want to either. But I'm like, just stop it, and I can't believe he
just
was
want to
so
shake
calm.
it, say, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he was so calm, just like, okay, thank you. Like, I'm sending you this, thank you.
Like, listen, this guy deserves an award. I couldn't. I think I would go absolutely nuts if I had that in my ear all the time. Like, it would not work for me at all.
It's just too calm. It's too calm and nice.
Opposites attract, and that's what's happened here, I think. I think he's like the opposite.
You just want to break out. Like, just break out of that.
Good point here, Evie. Evie says that she does seem sweet. She did calm Derek down when Derek was freaking out about
Oh,
Claire.
yeah.
And that was good. That was good to see. I did see that moment where
Obviously she has that effect on him. He's someone that will take that in, and he's not annoyed by it, which, that's why they work together and they work well.
Oh no, this is Derek. This was Derek. So you remember not Rich?
Derek.
So Derek at one point was really getting in his own head about Claire not doing well. And she spoke to him outside of that saying, hey, like I think he said something that at that point she said, that's not going to help Claire. Just be supportive quietly for now, type of thing. She just calmed him down a little bit. And I thought that was kind. That was kind because they are your competitors. Like if they struggle, like I wouldn't help another team. I'd be like, exactly. I'd just be like, I would go to Derek and be like, hey man, you really need to tell Claire not, to do better. Like, egg on or something. Like, I would do the opposite. I would sabotage. I wouldn't do what she did.
Yeah, exactly. But Rich and Dom, as I was saying, I think he's got the type of personality that Rich has the type of personality that would take on board what she says and not actually get angry with it, because he seems to be okay with the way that she talks to him. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with the way she talks to him. It's just, it drives me a little bit crazy that it's just too calm.
Hey, you can't, like, some people, different strokes for different folks. Not everybody gets along with everybody all the time, and that's okay.
Yeah.
None of us, like, for me, I actually think I would find Dom entertaining in real life. Like, I would want to have a conversation with her.
Yeah.
Because I kind of like that personality in real life.
I would go around. I mean, you need to have all these different personalities. Yeah.
I do want to bring up, since we're talking about drama and sabotaging, Lovable Nikki earlier said that she misses the speed bumps and the U-turns, and I do as well, because I do feel like now 2 seasons in without them, we're kind of starting to see that without some of the great things and ingredients that makes the Amazing Race exciting, the episodes can be very straightforward and a bit bland, in my opinion, without this. Like, I want this there for the drama.
U-turns are good.
Exactly, because it creates drama, it creates animosity between teams. Like, what's going to get these teams upset with each other right now? I don't feel like there's no mechanic in the game that's going to do that, except for, David being a mechanic, but he's a helicopter mechanic, not this kind of mechanic that we need in there.
Yeah, there's nothing there. They're all pretty friendly, aren't they?
Exactly. And that's like the thing for me. It's like I need a little bit of that, in the game. But let's see, it's still early days, as they get closer to the money and the money becomes real, they might change a little bit. There might come a little bit of a rivalry might form down the line, like how Kayla had that rivalry with Dusty, and now they're podcasting together. So now
I know, it's crazy.
That's awesome. No, I love them both. They're awesome people. But so yeah, looking at this, by the end of this, we've got Michael and Marcus first place, Emily obviously in second place with her twin sister Molly, Aubrey and David in third, Louis and Michelle in fourth, Linton and Sharik right bam smack in the middle at fifth. We've got Claire and Derek in sixth place, Abby and Will in seventh place, Quentin and Maddie in eighth place, and then Rich and Dom in ninth place. And they leave us with Lumumba and Glenda still at the detour.
Yes.
So,
how long are they going to be there? Are they going to be told to stop?
My suspicion is Lumumba and Glenda comes back this next episode. I don't think that they're going to be eliminated.
Really?
I really think someone else is going to mess it up. They're coming back. They're like, I'm telling you now, like, in the order of who I want to win this thing right now, Quentin and Maddie right at the top, Lumumba and Glenda second.
Oh my God.
They dare not leave this episode. I'm loving them.
Oh,
I'm loving them. I love Lumumba. Lumumba's, how can you not like his personality? It's coming out more and more.
I like him. I just don't understand how you can have them at second.
I just like him. I'm not saying they're the second best team. I'm saying this is the teams I'm shouting for.
Okay, okay.
You got to have your teams. You got to have your teams, Michelle. You got to have your teams you're shouting for. And obviously, Derek and Claire, love them from the seasons they've been on. And then probably Marcus and Michael. Those are like the 4 teams. Like any of those 4 teams win right now, I'm pretty happy. Who do you have outside? Is there anybody outside of that you feel like know? Oh, the twins are pretty cool as well.
I like the twins. So I've always liked the twins. I do like, even though they're a bit strange, I do like Linton and Sharik. because I just like Linton. Louis and Michelle, I quite have a soft spot for. I don't know why. And Marcus and Michael, yeah.
Well, there we have it. I think that's the end of this episode. What an interesting episode. There was a lot happening, but yet there was a lot not happening this episode. I'm looking forward to going back to next episode where we actually have a pit stop and we actually get to see a team eliminated. I've never been a fan of draws either. It's just not my thing, Michelle. I like having something happen at the end of the episode. There being
I know
a result.
You do. I know. I remember you don't like, just something floating along.
Yeah.
You want a result.
Any final thoughts from your end? Is there anything we missed out on?
No, God, I didn't write a lot of notes, but we seem to talk a lot about a lot of different stuff.
Always happens.
Yeah.
Well, for those that are listening to this podcast still at this stage, please consider subscribing to the channel. It's absolutely free, and it just continues to grow, I guess, our credibility within the podcasting world.
Credibility?
Look at me using bigger words.
We came 7th in the podcasting ranking. We've gone down one. We were 6th the first week, and now we're 7th. So we have to get back up there.
Explain this to people that are like, what are you talking about, Michelle?
Okay, the Tara historian, who is Logan Saunders, rates all the podcasts that are talking about The Amazing Race currently. There are 25 of us in the running, of which, Dustin and Kayla are there, and Justin and Diana and Rap's there. And, there's so many of us. And he comes on and he listens to 2 minutes. Thanks, Nikki. 2 minutes of every podcast. He doesn't know when he's coming on, what's going to be talked about in those 2 minutes. So last week he came on and I said something like, I love that. I love that. And then we moved on to something else. And he was like, I wish I knew what she loved or whatever, because he doesn't go back. So he only listens to those 2 minutes and he judges you on 2 minutes of your hour or an hour and a half, whatever your podcast is. So, we're 7th currently out of 20-something podcasts.
That's great.
We're doing well.
Thanks, thank you so much. Thank you so much for rating us that high. We appreciate it. But yeah, so, outside of that, which is always great as well, to get that high of a, placement, if you subscribe, that just earns us additional credibility as the channel grows. That means we can get more and more people to come on and hopefully talk to us after the season is over. That's what I'm trying to do, is get better context with CBS and channel 10 over in Australia. I'm lucky to have a good relationship with Mnet already for South Africa when it comes to Survivor. But, as we continue to build this channel, that just helps with that. So it's completely free. Please consider subscribing if you're listening to this. At the moment, I believe that only 60% of you that are listening to this are subscribed. So that means 40% of you can still hit that subscribe button and help us grow this channel, which I would really appreciate. Like this, please. And, I love that, Michelle. I love that. Push the button.
Push the button. Subscribe.
And really appreciate it. And we will catch you guys next week as we talk about the next episode. Thank you so much to everybody that has been taking part in this live, all the way from Lovable Nikki to Iga, Evie, and Christian Gal. We appreciate you guys so much for jumping in and being a part of this conversation. And see you next week. Bye.